first of all, very warm welcome to you all. We've got Jess online, obviously. So who would like, what, Brian or Dawn, should I hand to you first, or we just crack straight into it? Okay, let's go.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nail Abu Saleh. I'm from Wakakotai. I'm the project manager for the safety intervention for the project from Cambridge to Puriri.
Kia ora, I'm Jo Wilton. I'm the regional manager for infrastructure delivery. And Jess, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Kia ora koutou. I'm called Jess Andrew Tukuingoa. I'm the regional manager for system design, and apologies, I'm battling COVID, so decided you probably didn't want me there in person today, but I'm sorry not to be there with you.
Thank you. I don't know how this will work, but how can I put the presentation on the online?
I believe Jess was going to share her screen with the presentation on, but I think everyone has the presentation on their device.
Oh, you have it in front of you? Okay.
We have it in front of us anyway, so.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll stick to the script since everyone has that and it's not on the screen. So today we're here basically to share with you the update of the safety interventions on that stretch of road and what's coming up and the recent I would say project that we have undertaken or piece of activity at Hydro Road. And then the next steps, what we're going to do. And I'm happy for questions afterwards. Okay, cool. So I have included in the presentation a layout plan, as you could see it in front of you. And that basically shows the safety intervention extent, which is from the end of the expressway at Cambridge all the way up to the Puriri intersection. Now, if you have a look, the areas which they are basically gray highlighted, they have been completed with regards to the median barriers and road marking adjustments. The stretch of the road between the Keeley's Reserve all the way up to Kentucky, this is currently under the implementation, where basically we have done recently pavement testings and to verify the design, and then we'll crack on afterwards with the safety interventions during the next summer season. The next section is basically from the expressway, which is highlighted dashed and the dashed oranges. And currently we are basically have had the median barrier designed from the expressway, all the Hydro Road completed. And from Ferguson Gully all the way to Gordon Road, it's been designed completed. Okay, but we are working on some sort of, I would say, property arrangements with regard to the turnarounds. Now, yeah, so I'll continue with the Hydro Road. So with Hydro Road now, we basically have a contractor on board, and we are starting with the, if you flip the page, okay, all right. Oh, you got it.
Right now.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
So that's somebody doing it remotely. So hopefully she'll click along as you go.
Yeah, sure. Shall I wait until you click on?
Can Zoe hear us?
Yeah, I think, sorry, as long as somebody's got a microphone, Zoe will be able to hear us. So Zoe, if you just keep forwarding through. Oh.
Yep, that's us.
Yes,
Is that the right page? Yeah,
Yep.
I think so.
Yeah, the next one, if you don't mind. Cool. The next
and
slide,
one more.
please. Yep,
Thanks,
that's the one. Okay. So we get a lot of questions about what is a turnaround. It's basically a safe U-turn, but in a local road. And the reason why we're having roundabout turnarounds is basically once there is a median barrier in the middle of the road, the two streams of traffic gets isolated, which is exactly what we want, because we would like to actually safeguard the traffic and have less head-ons accidents. For that, to provide facilities or flexibility for the traffic to maneuver, and if someone would like to go to the other way, the turnarounds comes into play. And in the picture that you have on the screen, it's a typical turnaround, and specifically for Hydro Road. And that's when the full arrangement of the median barriers is installed. It shows exactly left and left out, okay, and no right turn. That's the ultimate once we have everything in there. Now, in the interim, we're starting in the construction on the 20th of June on there, and basically we had a very tight and restricted window to do that. We do understand the inconvenience on that, and why we are doing it in that short term. Number one is to finish it as quickly as possible, we need to acquire or actually take control of the whole intersection with minimum lift in, lift out, and basically no right turn. Now, then what we're going to do is that we have had a discussion and consultation with Mercury company at the dam, and they basically gave us this window up to the 31st of July where basically the Eriki Road can be opened. So we can actually have a back door to the residents over there. Just they can maneuver and go to the city or the township. So that's where, in a nutshell, why we're having it. Now, as I mentioned, during the interim or during the construction, the right turn will not be available. But once the construction is completed, the right turn will be reinstated. And I mentioned that on the slide in here, which is point number 6. Okay, so that's what
into Hydro, it won't be available until.
Yeah, okay. And after, I mean, even exiting Hydro as well to the State Highway 1, that won't be available. Okay, afterwards, it will be in the interim available.
Not from Hydro down to State Highway 1.
From Hydro to State Highway 1, once the turnaround is completed in the interim, it will be reinstated. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, until we complete the median barriers all the way up to Carapiro. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. As then I've shared on this presentation. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay. So this is a scheme of how we looked at how we can have the safe maneuverability with the during construction, and we have had the discussions with Brian and Eric earlier. Is if we can have the Shakespeare roundabout in the middle of the town or there as an interim turnaround until the time we have Hickey Road, or there is a turnaround design north of Hickey Road. Until that is built, then we don't need that option. But for this particular exercise, and since we are really going fast and super fast to implement the turnaround, the safest option that we could see that the residents or any road users to turn around and go back if they want to go south is this, what's there. Take a left turn from Hydro Road all the way up to the Shakespeare roundabout, turn, join the traffic back on the express, on the highway. The blue line, which is going all the way down on over Hydro Dam, that's only for the residents. Okay, because it has its own restrictions, but at least it's a flexibility. Any questions before I move on? Good. Can I have the next slide, please? Cool. So we have also socialized this particular schematic, which exactly shows the restrictions during construction. So there will be no right turn to the expressway, no right turn to the Hydro Road from there, but left turn and left out, we're working on temporary accessibility in there. Okay. Yep.
So just a quick question.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, so if you are on the other side of the Hydro Dam, so if you are on Mangatotiri Road, will there be signage to indicate that there's no right-hand turn onto the expressway? Because you may choose not to cross the Hydro Dam if you've given advance notice. I'm particularly thinking about the events coming out of the domain.
Events. Okay. I'll look into that. Okay, because it's just deep into the network. Yeah. Okay.
So on the 1st of July, there is a very large cycling event, North Island Secondary School cycling. So there'll be thousands of people trying to turn onto the Hydro Dam and not knowing that they can't turn right. You'll sort it out? Good.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Sorry, I got my answer across.
Okay,
All
right.
good.
Thank you. All right. So on the next slides, if you don't mind, sorry. Well, that's a schematic just to basically, if anyone is interested in to see how I would say the completed turnaround looks like. It is going to look like that once all the median barriers across looked like. But in the interim, maybe I should have actually included the one, is that half the island there is going to be actually halved, and then there is basically a right turn bay to the expressway. Yeah, cool. Can I have the next slide, please? Cool. So where we afterwards? So afterwards is we are going to, once the turnaround is completed, we will immediately start with the median barriers from the expressway all the way up to Hydro Road, protecting around 3 kilometers. Okay, because that's basically the aim, as well as hopefully by that time we basically start on the other stretch, which is 2.6 kilometers from the Killis Reserve all the way up to Kentucky. So we're trying as much as possible to expedite the installation of the safety improvements. Also, I would like just to highlight that the roundabout at Kurapiro, there is a roundabout is proposed there. Hopefully by the end of this year, we have the design completed, all the property items, I would say issues being resolved, and then we can basically schedule the construction of that, because it's a very important element in the whole network. And yeah, and then we have had some good progress as well with regards to the property, I would say issues on the Tinakawa and Gorton Road turnarounds. Hopefully, towards the end of the year, we may actually schedule them as well to be implemented. We are looking at some procurement, I would say, value engineering and how we can just do things better. Yeah, there's a lot going in the mix, and I have a very good project team, to be honest, in terms of designs, Wakaputai, and everyone, and stakeholders as well. So far, the support has been immense. Yep. All right, and of course, there is the big roundabout at the intersection, State Highway 129, Piriri. We are targeting towards the end of the year also to start construction there. So that's basically have the 4 pieces of the puzzle all connected. Yeah, it is big projects. Yes, I totally agree with that. You know, and it's exciting. Yeah.
Is the appeal
Sorry.
being resolved? Is the Environment Court appeal being resolved on that roundabout?
It wasn't an Environment Court appeal. It was the notice of requirement. And yes, we have been granted our designation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ask questions here. So the question I have is, like with the Hydro Road work, for heavy traffic, they have to go through to the Shakespeare Road roundabout. Yeah, so that Shakespeare Road roundabout doesn't appear to be very large to me when I'm thinking of maybe a truck and trailer unit and things like that. Like, are you confident that those longer vehicles will be able to get around that roundabout safely?
So when we had the first request, and quoting Brian and the team, is basically we basically relayed the idea, and then when it was conceptually accepted,
Yeah.
The consultant Manatico, they have run their tracking checks, and
Yeah.
it was suitable.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brian, love to have your opinion on it.
Yeah, just to be clear, it's actually relatively low numbers because it's only heavy vehicles that are going to farm properties alongside the highway, which are going to be separated by the median barrier. So it should be actually quite low numbers, so quite safe.
No, yeah. Thank you.
How's the discussions going with the Hydro Road neighbours? Because I understand that there's been a few queries or concerns. Are you able to resolve all of their concerns?
Well, we have you are right. We have received some concerns, and we were expecting concerns. All the roadworks usually comes with a level of inconvenience. We do understand that, but we have responded to the recent queries we had through emails. We have responded to them, okay? And frankly, I expect more to come, and that's fair. If I was a resident there, I will ask the questions just to make sure that basically we are doing the right thing. It's, I would say, it's a community to Crown entity just together. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll get there. Lessons on microphone use. The main concerns were about obviously right turns out and right turns in. And what we've picked up is that we possibly didn't communicate very clearly that those right turns would be reinstated at the end of the construction period. The other concern was that the dam closing on short notice. So on that aspect, the project team have done a really good job of liaising with Mercury Energy, and Mercury Energy have given us the undertaking that there will be no short closures, but should an emergency happen, they will give us notice so that we can get something in place to open up the intersection should we need to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions? Everyone's happy? Brian?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just make the observation, it wasn't that long ago that, the Mayor and others were expressing concern about the safety risk on this piece of highway. And so it's been really gratifying to see Wakakotahi and their entire team working so hard to address these issues. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and look forward to, obviously we've experienced a number of accidents over in fact, for quite a long time. So this is certainly very welcomed by the community. Thank you for listening to all the concerns, as Brian said. And yeah, we look forward to hopefully better outcomes in the future.
Yeah, it falls under Wakakotahi Road to Zero program and endeavor as well. Yeah,
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
It's over to Jess now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, carry on. Jess, we can't see, we can see you. You're a little dot in our corner.
That's all right. I can take over sharing if you guys like, and I can share my screen with our presentation on this, unless your wonderful governance person wants to keep going. So I'm changing tack slightly, talking about the Hamilton Southern Links project and just giving you guys a short update on the form and function review that was carried out and what's come out of that. Just to give you that ability, I guess, to ask questions and to understand where that's landing. So hopefully that will come up to you now. There we go. Fantastic. And I'm happy to take questions throughout. My ability to kind of see you is a little bit limited, so please just make sure you yell out and I'm sure I will hear them. So just to give you a little bit of background on this, I'm sure you all know the project exceptionally well, the Hamilton Southern Links project, but I guess just that reminder that it has a pretty long history. It goes back to 1962 and before that even. And the study for the existing designation that is held through part of your district, Waikato and Hamilton, was done in 2004. The designation was confirmed in 2016. And in particular, our review here focused on the 21 kilometres of state highway. So as you'll be aware, the local road aspects are largely under construction through the Peacock's growth area work, and the state highway elements are currently sitting there under designation. We've got active property acquisition that kind of remains happening. We're in about 75% of the property by, I think, land area at this point. So we own a significant amount of property and those RMA approvals are sitting there. But there is no construction funding confirmed or kind of in the known pipeline at this point. So this gives you a little bit of a reminder of what is in there. The purple through to the orange here demonstrates the state highway components of Hamilton Southern Link. So you've got your east, west and north, south components primarily, which are forming that And just the caveat, some of the questions we always get asked, just a reminder that this review wasn't intended to create any vulnerability or make any change around the designation. We have no intention of relinquishing that designation. It was really about looking at the form and the function of what is built within the designation, nor was there any intention to change our current property purchase approach. We'll continue to meet our requirements under all of those. But what we did want to acknowledge is that the world has changed a bit since all of those dates that I've listed earlier, and there have been shifts in policy. Land use has changed in the area significantly and is likely to keep changing. There is the increased focus on sustainability, carbon emissions, mode choice, and the legislative requirements through things like the emissions reduction plan. There is also just the reality that the world around it has changed. So we have the Waikato Expressway opened, and so the timing tied in really well with us being able to look at what the impact of the expressway actually opening has been on that. It also allowed us to look at some of the growth that's happening around the airport in those areas and look at what that might mean. And this gave us the opportunity to look at all of that and think about what are the opportunities, what are the constraints, and what's the future for this. So what did it tell us? I will summarise these a little bit for you, but the key point really is that with the amount of growth around here and then the consideration of some of those growth areas, unsurprisingly, how this road is developed into the future will depend on what the growth is. And so whether we allow, as future-proof partners, significant growth in southern Hamilton, not just at Peacocks, obviously, but to the west of that, will impact what sort of road we need. And that will impact kind of the form it needs to take and the function it needs to provide. Put simply, if you grow a huge amount around the road, then you're going to need more accesses off and around it, which is going to change what it looks like and change its function and its purpose. So one of the things that said, what kind of came through clearly for us is that needs to be determined clearly before you kind of nail down the future form of it, because there may be some tweaks that need to be done around that. What we also saw is that the transport network around there is facing increasing pressure. So we particularly saw increased pressure on State Highway 21, so that existing east-west link. Since the Waikato Expressway has opened, the data is showing that there is, and those of you who live in and around there, as many of you do, will be able to attest to this, there's a lot more pressure on there. People are using that road a lot more. We've got some safety issues. We've got just general kind of access and usability issues around there that mean that we do need to focus on that connection as a priority. And that goes to questions like staging and what we do in the interim when funding for the long term is not yet confirmed. And I'll speak a little bit more about that in the next steps piece at the end. We also identified some local issues that are occurring in and around this area that need addressing beyond that. So obviously I've already talked to State Highway 21, but we've got pressure around Tamahiri interchange, and we're aware of the access for residents and their needs there. We've put something interim in place, but that will need to be continued to be monitored. And there's also some congestion issues. We've got the northern precinct to the airport expanding out, as you're aware. And then we've also got increased congestion kind of southwest of Hamilton around State Highway 1C at each of those intersections that we've listed, which are causing more and more, accessibility constraints and issues for the airport, for the city, and impacting how we operate into the future. So, and here's some pictures. Here's a pretty picture view, which kind of identifies each of those, which I won't dwell on. What this has led us to in terms of looking at what's next to Hamilton Summer Links, and I guess this broader transport network in this area, is obviously the land use needs to continue to be tested through Future-Proof, and that is happening through the Future-Proof strategy work that's underway, including the update to the housing and building, HBA housing and building assessment. Oh, sorry, excuse me. And then there's some activities that we think need to come up with, of course, the glaring caveat of funding. And that is looking at what is the future of State Highway 21, kind of prioritising that piece of work ahead of the other parts of Hamilton Southern Links and looking at something sooner rather than later to address that east-west connection. They're the same as that we're looking at a business case for the western side of Hamilton, jointly with Hamilton City Council, to look kind of Dinsdale all the way down. What is the integrated solution to that part of the network? We've seen that doing small tweaks over on that side of Hamilton doesn't work, and we need to take a broader holistic view to that whole part of the network and the links out of it, rather than a piecemeal approach. So we're looking to do something around that. We're also, obviously, we know that Hamilton Southern Links in this world will need to take a little bit more of a multimodal view and just exploring more what are the options around that, around public transport and walking and cycling, and enhancing those aspects of the existing footprint and the project that we've got. Not fundamental changes, but just making sure that we've got those front and centre. And then as we move forward, working with the future-proof partners just to understand and make sure that the project is responding to the environment, so that at the point that construction funding comes online and we're designing the next level of detail that comes after your designation, that we're really clear on what we need and what that needs to address. So the idea is the first two activities are both you'll see in the State Highway Investment Proposal and going into the Regional Land Transport Plan as proposed activities for funding in the next NLTP, whereas the other ones are things that we'll do, I guess, internally consulting with each of you, particularly through Future Proof, to just look at the project and look at what its future is. And then that's the end. I'll keep it on there just to make it easier for you, but happy to take questions, thoughts, responses around, I guess, around this and anything more you want to know about the project.
All right, thank you for that, Jess. It was fantastic. I'll hand over to Bruce first for a question.
Oh, thank you. Jess, do you see this, you had a 10-year plus time frame out. Do you see with all this work being done, it's going to be happening within the next 20?
Look, I think it's fair to say I don't know is the answer. What we know is the National Land Transport Fund does not have a lot of money for big transport improvements of this scale at the moment, and that there's also a lot competing for the priority buckets of money, which pushes us to this is the sort of project that's more likely to be funded through direct Crown investment than the NLTF at this point, which puts it out of my sphere of ability to guess.
Well, I'm going to take great heart in the fact that you're reviewing it anyway, because I always think that's a good sign. Okay, any other questions? Andrew.
Just curious, do you have any data on the increased traffic on State Highway 21 as to how much of that is heavy transport?
I do think that some of the Bluetooth data broke it down, and I can try and get hold of some of the breakdown to show what level of detail that goes through. Yeah. What we did do, was we were breaking down the level of freight use, which was not as high. A lot of this is local trips rather than freight. So freight are tending to continue on State Highway 1 and go around the city rather than going over to State Highway 3. And so it was a lot less freight, less use than we had expected. But we can get you a bit more detail around that and send that through if you like.
I was kind of curious as to whether much of the heavy transport have been diverted from 39 to 2021 and back onto State Highway 3, or there's certainly been a few changes along those lines, and in our final report, which, as I say, we're still kind of working through, we wanted to socialise the direction particularly with you kind of partner councils first. We do a bit of a breakdown of what we've seen in some of those changes, and we've definitely seen some movement along those lines.
Just quickly to actually further what Andrew was saying, Jess, with the formation of the Ruakura Inland Port, do you think that will exacerbate that with some of the heavier transport or transport coming through? So I just wondered whether that would have an impact on your design.
Yeah, we've been looking at that as well as to how the development of that, because that's pushing people to, depends where their origin, but a lot of coming south and are tending to get up to State Highway 1 early. so that they can go right up and they're potentially not coming through State Highway 21. A lot of that freight's already on one before then. And Ruakura is supporting that by putting that hub on the eastern side. I think it's a really sensible location to drive that kind of efficient freight use of State Highway 1.
All right, I don't think we have any further questions.
Oh, hi, Jess. So I just confirm, I guess this is a designation for 20 years and it was in the district plan at 2016, I think, looking at the website there. So designation lapse at 2036, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Rightio. Okay, everybody, I think that's the end of the day for us, but also thank you to our guests for that very
Thank you.
very interesting. So thank you very much.